Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Quorum Podcast. This is where academic medicine meets remote, austere, and resource-limited areas. Welcome back to the program. This is Aebhric O'Kelly. This week, we are joined by Mark Lopshire, who is a board member of the Wilderness Medical Society. Mark, welcome to the program.
Well, great. It is my pleasure to be here, and just you have a great programs, and I'm sure you've got some just amazing students and folks out there supporting you.
So tell us a bit about yourself and what's keeping you busy.
Well, so I'm kind of a little bit on the senior side, the seasoned side, is some folks would probably call it, so I'm also a retired Army officer. Spent a lot of time traveling the world for over a couple of decades. And in addition to that, I changed careers after that and I was director of a outpatient cancer center for a number of years, and here in southern Idaho, and just exposed to a lot of different aspects of medicine in those days. And then when I retired out of that, just started having a blast, and my wife and I are here in southern Idaho in the U.S., and so we have a lot of opportunities just to have fun, whether it's with the Wilderness Medicine Society, that I'm primarily serving on an international NGO, and our NGO deploys overseas on a moment's notice in many cases to provide medical support or just support distributions throughout the world after earthquakes, hurricanes, during wars. And many of these cases, we go in with just what we've got coming off an aircraft or a pallet or a vehicle, and we provide medical support or possibly food, shelter, or water to local populations that are struggling until the host nation is able to get back onto its feet. So after an earthquake, what happens? Well, a government is pretty much overwhelmed. We fly in, we set up, say, a hospital, and these hospitals vary in size and magnitude and number of staff that we have on ground. And what we will do is set up in some location. We'll usually bring our own power, and we are out there in the field, say after an earthquake in Turkey a couple of years ago, where the city of Antakya was devastated, and we were there for the next 60 days until the government could actually set up and help and support their citizens with a different type of infrastructure. So one of the key things in this is a lot of times our doctors come in and they may be former directors of a surgery center or other high-level organizations. And they are in there and they are working 12-hour days. They may be on days, they may be on nights. And they don't always have, all of the equipment that they would have in a major national or regional hospital, say Mass General. Working out in the field under those austere, in an austere environment is very much different from what you may be, used to in a major city, whether it's in Europe or U.S. or the Australia locations.
That sounds to me like very much like a special forces unit, like a bunch of Green Berets doing a quicker action force and what we call a foreign internal defense mission. So you go to these devastated parts of the world and you recreate society.
We recreate medical infrastructure and support the other infrastructure. The UN's got 4 primary areas that we could support: medical, shelter, water, and food distributions. And you're absolutely right. We have a number of former U.S. Special Forces individuals, officers, and senior NCOs that are on our teams. One of them, spent, I love Danny, and I can talk about him, but he is a retired SF officer, And he spent years over in the Middle East doing exactly this, working on foreign internal defense and teaching and training, supporting, going back into combat locations.
And speaking of combat, you've been to Ukraine as well.
Yes, yes. Over the years, the last couple of years, and in fact, the war kicked off February 22nd, 2022. We were in country by the end of the month. We
Wow.
were positioned in Krakow. We had to take our vehicles down to the border, get across the border, and we initially set up in Lviv, which was really an eastern part of the country. And when we were there, nobody knew how fast the Russians would come eastward. So it was a temporary location. We set up. We had what we call as a tier 3 hospital, which is a major hospital, 2 operating rooms, 40 beds, 8 emergency room beds, ICU beds, and we were feeding a staff of 70. And that was just us. And we were from 5 different countries. We were from Germany, Great Britain, US, Canada, and Australia. So it's truly an international organization that we just get together and do the right thing.
Nice. Nice. So when you have transitioned out of active duty military into a retirement role, and instead of buying a fishing boat and just relaxing, you've decided to continue pushing the envelope and creating excellence wherever you are.
Yeah, and that is one of our um, part of our mission is we don't go in there and just we're not going to go in willy nilly and set up shelters. We're going to go in and set up quality shelters. We're going to give people quality blankets, even if it costs more. We're a nonprofit, and we will bring in the best doctors. We will bring in the best nurses and staff. All of the support staff goes in with us, whether it's the security managers, whether it's base operations, whether it's somebody has to feed this group of 20, 30, 50, or 70, and so we have base managers that go in with us. We have wash teams or water and sanitary hygiene teams, because we need water as well. That hospital needs water. And so we set up fully functioning water treatment facilities, and they might be just, solar powered, sit on the back of a building, or it could be full fledged. We're bringing in dirty seawater and we're running it through a major filtration system that we've designed. So, yeah, we're setting up infrastructure to support the locals.
And you're setting up clinics as well. So you have medical doctors and medics helping out.
Yes. And those vary in size. It depends on if what's the patient population. That's the very first thing. Is it going to be internally displaced people, IDPs? Is it, if they have fled, let's say, Kyiv, and they've gone eastward to the Polish border and they're out in the vicinity of Lviv? So they speak the language, they understand the language, they are fleeing a war. So that's internally displaced people. In Sudan this spring, we had about 100,000 IDPs, internally displaced people, because of the civil war there. The Sudanese armed forces controlled the eastern part of the country, the RSF, and the western part of the country. And we were kind of down there in the southeast. And so we had about 100,000 IDPs down there. And in a period of 90 days, we saw almost 8,000 patients.
Wow. So not only is that a challenge to have the clinic, you've got to have the logistics behind it to replenish all the stuff you're using.
Yeah, huge logistic tales. And that's always one of the challenges, getting pieces and parts and follow-up supplies and support into country, whether it's going through customs, whether it's we prefer, in fact, to just buy local. If we can get into a country and purchase things local, whether it's medicines or supplies, we will absolutely do that, as opposed to trying to have it shipped in from Germany or Canada or the US. We support the local population. We support the local economy doing that. And I think it's kind of one of the just those secondary missions where you buy local.
How much improvisation are you having to do? Are you having to create clinical equipment and medical kit as you go?
Yeah. And I think back to this spring, there in Sudan, the southeastern part of Sudan again, and a little town of Gedaref. When we go into some of these locations, we had 500 babies born during this time. We had one ward just dedicated to labor and delivery, plus one OR. We had a small OR set up in a tent. But when those babies are born, they need to be warmed. And our build team, we had, a build team that helps us set everything up, 3 or 4 guys. And what they will do is they will continue to work there. And they built a baby warmer. The baby warmer was just built out of wood. And the babies there are like 2 pounds. If they're 2.5 pounds,
Wow.
they're going to go in the baby warmer. Um, but it was heated by a hair dryer, just one that somebody
Really?
uses on their hair. You've got, warm oxygen flowing in across that baby. And that is what we used as a baby warmer. So yeah, we go in, it's kind of austere, and we kind of color outside the lines in some case. A surgeon in Haiti a number of years ago, he said, "I really need this elbow rest," and we use Doak surgery tables. They don't have any arm rests, and so we build something for them so that surgeon could rest his arm on there as he's doing surgery. And it's just wood. It's just 2x4s and plywood. So you're always coloring outside the lines to support your surgical team and the medical team and all the rest of the organization.
It'd be interesting to see a paper published on the hairdryer baby warmer. That's really fascinating.
We we built a number of those in a number of different locations, and I think they're getting good at it. And I remind everybody that you have to buy a local hair dryer because generally the power requirements, in the U.S. we're on 110, the rest of the world is on 220, and so you got to buy local. You got to ensure that hair dryer has got the right voltage going in it. Otherwise, you burn them up, and that's happened by mistake on a couple of occasions.
And you are also in Haiti. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this was probably 5 years ago. They had a very large earthquake down in the southwest part of the country, down the Lakai province. It was cut off from everything. Their 7 hospitals and clinics were shut down. When that happens, you've got, zero staffing at any of the hospitals or clinics because the doctors and nurses and staff, they're home taking care of their own families, or they might not be able to get in, or they may be injured. And so we flew a team into Port-au-Prince. We had to put them again on helicopters, put them on aircraft, and then find ways to truck uh, all of our supplies down into Lakai. And when we were there, we set up what we would call probably a level 2 hospital. We set out in the back of a university, out on their basketball court, and then out in their physical fitness field. Some challenges that you do, and you have to be aware of some of these things. Is number one is it's rampant with malaria, rampant with cholera, so you have to take you're on doxy for the entire time, doxycycline for the
Mm.
entire time you're there, and so as individuals though it's 95 degrees, 95% humidity, and if you're not staying hydrated, working under those conditions, no air conditioning except for the OR. And we have staff fail. So it's individually is a challenge. As patients, they're flying them in on helicopters or via foot or in vehicles. Uh, After 2 weeks, let's say you have a crush injury on an ankle. You've been laying in bed and a wall fell out on you. That ankle, because of those conditions, is going to be infected within 2 weeks if it's not cared for. And so
Mm.
only are you fighting crush injuries all the way from head to feet, you're fighting infections. Even staff, if the staff is, suffers a cut because we brushed up against a plant or something, we will get infections as well. So it's a, I'm not going to say it's a risky environment, but it's a challenging environment and it's an austere environment.
Well, it's interesting that you were in Lakai because I spent 6 months there in '94 when we invaded. So we had to invade to take back the country, and yeah, we it was such a beautiful country.
Oh, and you get down into the small towns, amazing people,
Mm,
absolutely
yep,
great people, and that's probably one of the more satisfying things is when you're working in one of these environments. Uh, the locals and the people are generally just absolutely amazing.
yeah, you had to get away from Port-au-Prince. Once you
Oh,
get away from these big cities, man, it's just beautiful people, beautiful location.
and you were doing the same thing. You had to teach and train and work in an austere environment. You had a smaller team, and we had probably 30 or 40 there in Haiti. But it's
Mm,
yeah, you were doing the same thing, working out of clinics and teaching and training the national staff and working with them.
yep, same mission. It's interesting what you're doing, and if someone wants to get involved, well, how do they do this? How do they become part of your team?
There's a number of different organizations out there. Probably globally, the one that you'll always hear about is MSF, or Doctors Without Borders. That is probably one of the international ones. And in fact, they were in Lakai when we were down there.
Really? Wow.
They have been. Oh, we met up with them in Ukraine out there in the Kharkiv and Izum location out on the Russian border. And so they are generally, pretty fast to get teams in and putting in clinics as well.
Hmm.
So there's a list of about 25 international NGOs that provide medical support or just support in general. In the U.S., Team Rubicon was in Haiti when we were there. They're a large U.S. organization. And so if you Google top 10 or top 25 international medical teams, all these names will come up. So and its processes. I recently was talking with one woman, an ER physician. She'd like to be involved more with on these rapid deployment teams. She's currently on two of them. However, she said, I've only gone on one deployment over the last 2 or 3 years. And, it's a challenge on timing. Number one, are you available? Two, is your family ready for something like this? Are they saying, oh, you're crazy. We need you here at home right now because we're going through some tough times. Can your work release you for 3 or 4 weeks? Unless you're retired, sometimes a lot of the medical staff has contractual agreements where, yeah, I'm going to put in 50 weeks of work a year or 48 weeks of work, and we're going to be planning ahead on when people take off, not right now. So there's some challenges in there with family and work and yourself. Are you healthy enough to go into someplace like Haiti? Um, are you healthy enough to go into some place and you have all your shots to go into some place like Syria? I was in Syria this spring as a team lead, and you're going out and you're working in different cultural locations, even though you're in the same country.
Hmm.
Um, Syria has got multiple aspects. Great people, but you've got on one day you may be working with a Orthodox Christian clinic in community north of Damascus. The next day, it might be a Druze clinic down in uh, the southern part, or 100% Shia Muslim in the Dara province. And so it changes every day. So you really have to have that acceptance and that flexibility in whatever you're doing overseas.
Hmm. You're also a big part of WMS. So can you tell us about the Wilderness Medical Society and What's the benefit for the austere medic?
Pretty, yeah, it's a great organization. It's been around for a number of years, and the founders were going back and forth to Everest and that area in Nepal. And really, if you want to practice austere medicine, you go to Everest Base Camp. you know,
Mm,
you're thousands of feet above sea level. Oxygen is rare. You're above 8,000 feet. You're up to 17,000 feet, and somebody up there injures themselves, and you know you're truly practicing austere medicine up at some place like that. And so they help in one of the clinics up there. It's a Sherpa clinic, and it's absolutely a great thing. And so as it expanded into different countries and regions, and people started really kind of looking at, hey, austere medicine really is wilderness type of medicine. So it goes all the way from search and rescue teams out there, and let's say on the Appalachian Trail, and somebody's 2 days away from finding any help. What do you do to that person who has injured an ankle, who is torn a tendon doing something? How do help that individual from a search and rescue team, or a passerby? How do we do that? And a lot of programs, you've got wilderness medicine first responders and wilderness medicine EMTs. You got um, eh, great programs for physicians and nurses, and so it's a global effort. When you're in the outback in Australia, the threat out there of being eaten or killed by 100 different spiders, snakes, and alligators is going to be a little bit different than what we see in Africa with the threat of, say, cobras.
mm.
Um, but it's all the same. It's all the basics, the same processes. It's when you start getting down into the nitty gritty. And the Wilderness Medicine Society will put out, clinical practice guidelines or CPGs in each of these wilderness areas. Nobody else does that. We read in the Journal of American Medical Association what's happening in surgery, but we're not looking at what's happening out on the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Coast Trail, in the middle of Australia or the middle of Thailand. And so that's what they take a look at. And so they publish their findings, their guidelines on how to treat this specific type of snake bite, how to treat these types of injuries in the wilderness, austere environments. So that's kind of what the Wilderness Medicine Society does, and it's a great organization to be involved in. And just take a look at it up on the internet, WMS.org. If you're interested in something like that.
And you have your farm as well. So tell us, what's the benefit for people getting your fellowship?
Um, Really, the FOM, or the Fellow of Academy of Wilderness Medicine, is you've got to put in like 100 credit hours to achieve that. So it's a time of study, and you've got up to 5 years to complete that. It's another international certification that you can walk into an organization and say, yeah, these are my credentials. And if they are mountaineering related or backcountry related, they will understand what that is. It's much like you do with your college. The College of Remote and Offshore Medicine is absolutely amazing, and internationally they recognize that. They recognize the DIM or the DDIM, for diving and mountaineering internationally. So these are just great schools and great credentials to have if you're going to be involved in austere medicine.
I find that it's a currency. It's something that you can show the the people you're interacting with, or if you're at a conference, that you have done at least something to specialize in wilderness and austere medicine. And when I'm looking for speakers, or if I'm looking for faculty and they have the FOM, that puts them well above and well ahead of other people.
Yeah, and they're involved in kind of a unique community, and that community being, wilderness medicine, related is, and We just recently had a conference out in Wisconsin this summer, and it was absolutely amazing to. You're speaking with surgeons, you're speaking with doctors and nurses and PAs and first responders, SAR teams, and it's people in the humanitarian world, and all of those shared experiences um, not only enhance your abilities when you deploy in those areas, but personally, it's you're learning more about yourself and how you in fact can operate in those areas. So I encourage people to you know get hooked up and work with some of these groups.
And I see that this last conference, you did a presentation on personal everyday carry kit. So what was your presentation about?
And I actually had two of them, and
Oh,
one of them was a workshop.
nice.
Um, the presentation was really working in Ukraine under austere conditions. Being in Ukraine, each of those times we set up a larger hospital with a couple of small clinics initially in Lviv. Um, and we had some lessons learned, but the lesson learned was the Russians aren't going to come farther east. And so we're going to go, or they're not going to come farther west. So we're going to go towards the front lines. And so we set up a clinic with mobile teams in Kropotkin. And then we went up into, very remote, 20 miles from the border. We had a small headquarters element in Kharkiv, but we had a hospital down in Izum, which is just devastated. When the Russians came across, they devastated everything, and it's an artillery barrage, rolling barrages going forward, and then the Ukrainians took it back, and so there's further damage, and so very um, unique uh, challenges out there, and then moving down into the Kherson region, starting um, certifications and training and working with their small mobile teams, and then back up to Kyiv later on to certify some of these teams with the World Health Organization. So very multifaceted, and we still have a team over there working with the hospitals and are doing training on infection prevention controls, IPC, trauma, mother baby clinics, and things like that. And that's really long term where you can really help a country um, such as Ukraine. Is you're working, you're teaching, you're training, you're building them up so they can move forward on their own.
So that's definitely hitting the ground running. That you've been doing similar things to what you did in the military. You did 20 years, you retired, and now you're doing the same thing, and you're just keep pushing. And I guess my next question for you is, what's next? Where are you in 5 years?
Probably still working some of this. I have so many fun opportunities. Even I've been out on wildland fires. I'm a wildland fire um, guy, and and also wildland medical qualifications. And so I'll go out on one of these 80,000 acre fires, and I'm either on the firefighter end or I'm on the medical side, and we'll go out there and a whole different world even out in there, because there you're working with blisters, you're working with um, rashes from guys sweating so much, dehydration, and then all the way up into burns. Last couple of years ago, even here in Idaho, we had a helicopter crash, and we
Wow.
had deaths involved. So yeah, so that's just absolutely amazing. And the ski patrol, if people want to practice austere medicine, you get involved with ski patrol. I've been director of a ski patrol, and I'm an instructor for outdoor emergency care. And there you've got to find the patient, haul all your toboggan and medical stuff down to wherever they're at, and then you got to get them out of there. You got to get them to a warm place, continue treatment until you can evacuate them. And so that is just fascinating, and it's got lots of challenges. So there's lots of opportunities. You don't have to go overseas to work in austere environments. You get involved with your county search and rescue teams, your local ski patrol teams. And so there's lots of opportunities out there. And so I'll continue this for a few more years before I buy my boat to go fishing.
Nice, nice. Well, Mark, my final question for you is this. What advice do you have for the new doctor, the new medic, the new nurse who is just starting out on the career in wilderness medicine?
Big, big question, huge question. Um, just a couple of notes. One, be flexible. You're going to sign up for something and say, gosh, I'm leaving tomorrow. I want to leave tomorrow, and they don't call you for 6 or 8 months. So be patient, then be flexible, because you may be a world-class surgeon and think, I've got this, and they're going to say, hey, you're on night shift. And you haven't worked night shift for 20 or 30 years. But be flexible, and they may not even have you as a surgeon or a surgical nurse. They may have you in one of the wards. The favorite story is got a good friend, and he deploys with us. Yeah, nationally known surgeon, and he goes with us. And as we're setting up, he is pulling electrical lines. He loves electricity, and he'll diagram it. He'll pull big cables from generators, put them in and plug them into spider boxes, running more cables. And it's absolutely amazing to watch Bob do this. And then, hey, he gets to be a surgeon. One day, though, one morning I had a requirement to get some pallets loaded on a truck. I said, okay, hey, I need a forklift operator. And a few minutes later, I hear the forklift. I look over there. It's Dr. Bob. And then afterwards, I said, where'd you learn how to drive a forklift? He goes, oh, I've got one at home. Yeah. So
Wow.
be flexible, be patient, and then just, be very accepting of everybody, because you're going to be working with people from multiple countries. Understand the culture, and then just love on those people.
Well, Mark, you have an interesting path through this life, and it's been interesting and fascinating to hear your stories and see where you're going and what you're doing. And I appreciate that you're a guest on our podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you as well, and everything that you do, and the things that we've got in common. Well, I look forward to sitting down over a cup of coffee someday and sharing a little bit more with each other.
This has been a presentation from the College of Remote and Offshore Medicine. If you would like to earn CPD credits for this podcast, you can join the Council of Members. Being a member of the college gives you free CPD credit, free access to our virtual field guide, and discounts on our e-learning courses. You can join the team on our college website at quorum.edu.mt.